So this is a COVID year. We're, when are we? May 20 something.
23rd.
23rd. Normally the docks would be full. And so now the marina or the sailing club just opened up Thursday. And so we got her launch, we got Restless launched on Thursday. Because we're, Friday, I think. No, yes, Thursday. It's been in 2 days. So, because we can, of course, use the just the launch ramp. We're not dependent on the crane. The other boats have to use cranes, so they're, of course, going to. I think they have to organize special measures, masks and gloves, and full regalia. So, I wonder if you can get a mask with the Nepean Sailing Club logo. That would be fun. So, at any rate, that's why you see a paucity of boats here, but they will fill up. People are happy, and we are going to have a sailing season, and that's more than we could have hoped for. I know we're happy. The lasers, they may be fast, but they have to tack. Hey. I guess I have to remember to put pieces of wool on the shrouds so I can see where the wind is. Today I think the wind's going to be a little all over the place. I can feel that it's kind of being... The thing is, without a Windex, it's hard to tell if you're really pointing optimally, because to find that out you have to bring her up and let her luff, and then you lose your you spoil your progress. Alright, so I just this year I rigged I think it's called a Huntingford Helm Impeder that I got from the Dinghy Cruising Association site on the British Dinghy Sailing Yacht Association, or Dinghy Cruising Association, DCA. And it seems to work quite well. It's keeping her on a fairly good course. You know, nothing's perfect, of course, but today the wind is varying quite a bit, so you know it's hard to keep a boat on a course with a tiller tamer when your wind is constantly changing in strength, because then the boat, you know, the heads, the sails fill differently. And so anyway, but the nice thing about it is it's very easy to adjust. See, you can do little micro adjustments, but it does seem to lock the tiller in quite nicely. And part of the beauty of this system is this little cleat here. So what you do is you can release it. This is a little loop of line that goes athwartship, and you just pull it through this little eye here and clip it, and there's bungee cord at one end so that you can tension it. And then all you do is you get going. You just you know, you can if you loosen this, if you don't tension the bungee cord, it should move fairly well. I think you have to have just an optimum amount of tension. Yeah, there. It moves, so you can steer freehand. But then if you get on a course that you like, for example right now, you just pull it and cleat it, and it locks the tiller in place. Pretty decent little system. I like it, and it was dirt cheap. You know, you buy a tiller tamer from a channel ring, you're going to pay $30-40, maybe more. This has well, whatever the cost of the material is. I mean, I had the I had the snap hook already in my kit, so yeah. I like it. I installed one on my Drascum as well. The only thing is the main sheet is under the thwart chip line. So if you wanted to snap it up quickly to release it, might be a bit problematic. So I think what you want to do with something like this is maybe arrange it so that it's on top, because you see the cam cleat releases like this. Well, I'm very grateful to be able to sail in the apocalypse, especially with my wifey. The wind comes up and down, but you know, it's not a bad thing on your first time out of the year. I've had some years when my first day out was, you know, raging whitecaps and gusts to 20 knots, and that gets to be a bit of a handful even in this boat. I mean, she's a pretty good boat, but I only have one reef in the main, and that there are conditions where that's not quite enough. And then you end up deploying just a scrap of Genoa, and that's really not ideal at all. For one thing, you can't point worth a damn when you're really reefed in, because they're just, you know, the sail shape's just all wrong. And I hear there's a roar down at this end of the lake is Britannia Yacht Club, and we always hear this roar because right about beyond those sailboats there, not very far, is a big set of frothing white rapids called the Deschenes Rapids. And there have been the odd boats that got themselves stuck there, you know, the engine failure and maybe weren't paying attention and got drawn into the current. But to me, when I sail, sometimes I get lulled into thinking it's like a highway sound, because it's like the distant rumble of a highway. And so you tend not to think about it. Our house is not far from a highway, so you know, you're so used to it. And I've had the odd times, especially when I started sailing here, where I'd be going along and kind of not paying attention, hearing that rumble in the background, and I would be noticing it getting louder and louder. And you know, I'm just enjoying sailing and not paying any attention, and then all of a sudden I realize I can start seeing the tops of the roiling rapids, and I start thinking, geez, I'm awfully close, you know. And yeah, at those times you start skedaddling, and boy, your sailing skills improve dramatically, because you've got to be really spot on to, you know, because at that point you're feeling the current. Anyway, here's the Deschenes Rapid. So up forward there is Britannia Yacht Club, that stately building. You may or may not see Britannia Beach, lovely beach. And now we're headed back towards the Nepean side of the lake. So on the north shore is Quebec, province of Quebec. On the south shore is the province of Ontario. So despite the presence of those motorboats down there, this is actually a pretty much sailing country. Lac Deschenes is a really well-known place. We have the Nepean Sailing Club and Britannia Yacht Club, which are the two main sailing venues, and they're very competitive. They have a lot of really interesting racing programs if you're into that sort of thing. And then we have the Aylmer Yacht Club, which is also, I think, somewhat competitive on the Quebec side. And the Lac Deschenes Yacht Club, and what's the other one called? The one at Shirley's Bay. That's Lac Deschenes. Yes. And the other, the Canada Sailing Club, I think, is the other one, yeah, which is further upriver. So it's a very robust sailing community here, and I'm sure you've seen in some of my other videos from previous years, there are days on a beautiful summer afternoon when it's a lovely bloom of sails of every color and description on the lake. It's really something. It's I call it the sailor's garden. We'll capture some of that this year, and maybe we'll even go for a little cruise upriver at some point and take you along. But Restless is she's a great gal, great boat. I love her dearly. Sails quite well. Does a lot of things really, really well. Small, but you know, that's actually a virtue in her case. She's easy to launch and haul out, and I can store her on my driveway during the winter. Can't ask for better than that. Her cabin is maybe not the biggest cabin for a 19-footer, but boy oh boy, it's It's quite comfortable for sleeping. It certainly is more than adequate. Very, very comfortable. Quarter berths. There's a V berth, but a bit short for adults. Very, very cozy.